Welcome back. I really did not know when I would make a new video about this topic because it really was for a long time a touch and go situation. And even though I do read a lot about international events, with Korea, it's kind of hard really to predict things. As I mean, surely people don't really predict that there would be peace talks of this level, and it's really a unique moment for people like me that we grew up mostly knowing the U.S. getting involved overseas more as so-called peacekeepers, but let's be honest, a lot of times it was involvement in foreign wars. And I do remember President Clinton getting us into Bosnia and of course Mogadishu. Yeah, Mogadishu happened when I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and then there was what was the other place? Kosovo, and of course Iraq under President Bush and the other President Bush. And by the way, also under President Clinton in 1998, we had Operation. It was called Desert Fox initially. So most of the time we're talking about the U.S. getting involved overseas in order to kind of be part of a war or some sort of armed conflict. Of course, there have been exceptions. There was the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, but we were never really involved in the war there. And there's the Oslo Accords is kind of a, I don't know what you would call that. That was the U.S. negotiating between the Israelis and Palestinians, but with the Korean conflict, I mean, we've been at war since the 50s, technically. On a technical level, we've been at war with North Korea since the 50s, and there was never any indication it would be any way different. And a lot of people, they become conditioned to the idea that there's certain countries that we're just not going to be able to resolve our differences with them. So it's just going to continue that way until one side collapses or the other one does, or until the war gets renewed entirely and we get into we really throw it down. That's what people thought would happen this year. People were like, well, Donald Trump is going to get us into international nuclear conflict with North Korea, and you I think some people were justified in their in that fear. It definitely was something that you had your eye on day in and day out. But with this development, I watched a video earlier of South Korea's foreign minister saying to Christiane Amanpour, who she went from being a pretty impressive journalist in the early 2000s to being just a joke nowadays. But it was an interview that was kind of, I mean, there wasn't much to get wrong. So this foreign minister said, yeah, it's because of this president that President Trump that this happened. Well, how are you supposed to then go and make the case that this guy is incapable and that he's incompetent and everything? Well, a lot of people who were supposedly much more intelligent than him failed to get anywhere near a peace with North Korea. That goes for President, George H.W. Bush. It goes for Clinton. Goes for Obama. So supposedly Obama was going to resolve all these conflicts. He was the one who, when he got inaugurated, I remember people were saying, well, he was going to, the lead from behind thing, I don't think that was the key. That was his objective in terms of the military. But he was going to use soft power, and he was going to pretty much, there was the apology tour and everything. And people thought, well, that's what's going to get America back in the good graces of the world. Well, it didn't work. in many cases, I think some of these nations saw some as tedious. Even Saudi Arabia didn't like President Obama so much. They thought he was kind of useless idiot. The guy. Yes, he turned a blind eye to all their crazy crazy ideas and how they would fund terrorism or whatever. But they needed him in order to keep Iran off their backs. Maybe because he didn't keep Iran off their backs, that's why they funded ISIS. It's not a good excuse, but I mean, I'm just saying that might be the reason. Um, and look, this is again focusing back on Korea. If he was to accomplish this, it would be probably evidence worldwide that something's being accomplished here. Somebody's taken the reins and trying to resolve things that have had to be resolved for years that people didn't think could really be solved. Whether it's Korea, whether it might be our relationships with Latin America, which I think are, personally, I think what's going on with Latin America could be more important than what's going on in the Middle East. We could be developing some great relationships with some of these countries. They offer, first of all, they offer. Generally, I think they have a younger population. We could probably, um, economically, we could probably develop commercial ties and, uh, you know, find ways to help them climb higher on the world GDP scale. Those are things that I think we're capable of doing here in Latin America, in the Western Hemisphere. Those are countries where religious fanaticism isn't really a concern, and you don't have these countries like North Korea that are ruled by ruthless dictators, with two or three exceptions. And those ones they're not going to be nuking anybody soon. They're probably just trying to stay afloat and be able to feed people, and faring very poorly at that. So look, this is an opportunity with Korea for President Trump to change the image of the United States abroad. In Pakistan, they still burn our flag, and for many reasons, they probably won't stop burning it ever, because some of those people are assholes. But if we proceed to have this attitude of what we're going to exert our economic muscle, and when we see a conflict where um, the United States can act in favor of a positive outcome, and not towards some massive war that ends up ruining entire nations. I think that's where Trump's skills would lie. And then earlier this week, I think I had kind of a more of a chat with Carlos. Well, it was one of my live streams, and he was just in the chat. He was saying, the Pompeo thing and whatever. Look, if Mike Pompeo, he has to still redeem himself in the eyes of many. But if Mike Pompeo is able to come in as Secretary of State, and he was confirmed yesterday, I guess. If he is confirmed, and after his confirmation, his first major activity is negotiating a Korean peace treaty. Well, I mean that starts him off. Rex Tillerson was kind of a throwaway. In fact, it's possible he could be an improvement on Rex Tillerson, who was just a disaster of a Secretary of State. The man was just. I think he was brought in just because he would be able to cut budgets and fire people, and other than that, I don't know what he was going to accomplish. But could be that Tillerson was also involved in the Korea negotiations. So there's all these people who say, well, yeah, Pompeo, he was a brutal neocon, and I think they also claim he was somehow involved pro-Iraq war, things like that. Also, and something I still can't let go right now is that as head of the CIA, he didn't try to resolve this whole thing with Julian Assange and say, look, fact is Assange told the truth, and in the interests of greater transparency and preventing all these abuses, we're going to ask that he be pardoned or let out or whatever. We'll cut a deal with him. The fact he didn't do that as CIA director, I don't know if he's capable of doing it as Secretary of State. That calls into question. I mean, how good can he possibly be? Maybe he's not going to be that good. The Korea thing might be he might have one good accomplishment at the beginning, and the rest of it's going to be a whole long strip of suck. And you can't get your hopes up too much. But with this one accomplishment, I mean, those people that have been doubting for so long, Donald Trump, they are really, really, really keeping their eyes shut at this point. There's the man does have his limitations, and he's not the perfect person. But when I saw that this was a moment when I knew that he could be president and he could succeed as president, it was I think it was October or September of 2016, and the president of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto, invited both him and Hillary Clinton to have individual talks with him and discuss the future of Mexico-U.S. relations. Well, I mean, Hillary Clinton basically said, "Well, we're not. This is unplanned. We can't just spare time at a moment's notice from this busy campaign in order to, talk to the president of Mexico. Plus, I have naps to get done. I have to." Do some sunbathing and stuff like that. That was her attitude during the campaign. I remember people were laughing that she campaigned like I think it was like 2 days a week or something, and then the rest of the time she'd let Bill do it, and she'd be sleeping or something. She maintained the whole charade that she's not unhealthy at all. She's meanwhile she has like a whole staff of friggin' these linebackers basically prepared to keep her from dying. She had more linebackers around her than were drafted today in the NFL draft. That was Hillary Clinton being protected in 2016. I guess they'd be offensive linemen. and it's absurd that she turned down that meeting with Peña Nieto, because how bad could it have gone? All she would have gone, well, I mean, it is Hillary Clinton, so something bad could have happened. But the fact is that Trump did take the opportunity. He did go down there. And those people who thought, oh, this is going to be a train wreck, well, he went down there and he stole the show. And he made Peña Nieto look like a fool. And people were, all the Trump haters at the time were saying, when I said that he made Peña Nieto look like an idiot, they were saying, well, how could it be in our interest as Americans to have Mexicans hate their president? And I was like, well, you don't understand. The whole point is when you're going into another country in order to accomplish something as the head of your country, and you might be at cross purposes with other person. Yeah, you're definitely looking to make him look like a fool, and that's exactly what he did. The whole meeting looked like, first of all, he made Peña Nieto look probably half his size. They were standing on those podiums. It looked like, on the one side there was Trump, who's abnormally tall, and then Peña Nieto looked like some kid at a spelling bee. And that was the moment I said, well, he knows he knows, first of all, what image means, what marketing it means, what selling your message means. And he didn't care about having to go down to Mexico to do it on a moment's notice. It's the same thing with Korea. This is somebody, he is a risk taker, and his risk in this case, it looks like it's going to pay off. I mean, you can't count your eggs before they hatch. Which if something does go wrong, I mean, in 2 weeks, this is not going to look like the best video. If something happens, but why is it that now Korea would erupt into a major conflict? I mean, here's my take on that. Why it is going on a trajectory of peace. In terms of Kim Jong Un. Well, Kim Jong Un was I think he came into power 4 or 5 years ago, and he's basically a millennial. And I think he grew up going to school in Switzerland or something. And the fact is that at a certain point, I think he realized, yeah, I was born the supreme leader of a country that, my father and my grandfather were they had the same position, and I'm as this is the greatest position I'll ever have. And even if the at a certain point he realized, well, he's never been able to live a normal life. He can't actually enjoy the world. He's basically a prisoner in his own kingdom, where he imprisons others. And whoever it was, whether it was Trump or whether it was the president of South Korea or whether it was Dennis Rodman, who's apparently a very good friend of Kim Jong Un. So one of them probably convinced him. Look, I mean, it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, there's other things to do, and you can go to India and have go on some sort of spirit quest over there or something. You can go to I mean, you don't have to stay in North Korea your entire life. I mean, you're the supreme leader of a country. You're basically a foreign leader. You can visit South Korea, for example. If you're the leader of North Korea, all it takes is a small step towards peace. You can visit South Korea, get to know the other Koreans. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. And then you'll just have a normal relationship with the rest of the world. You can go to the Philippines, you can go anywhere, you can go to Japan. The bottom line for them is that they were offering him a chance to break the paradigm that his own family had lived under for I think, what is it, almost 70 years now. They're saying to him, look, you have this chance, and your parents and your grandparents, they didn't take this chance, and for that, Korea is all the more poor. It could be the entire peninsula could be a first world nation. Instead, only the southern part is. So I think that was the tactic used. Whether Trump is the one who deployed it, or I mean, I think that's irrelevant. But we'll see what happens. And I think this is a major moment. And those people that are ignoring it in order to pursue, other stories that, I mean, who gives a shit about this Stormy Daniels or whatever? And people are obsessing over the Kanye West thing, which I myself did a video on that, a few hours ago, because of Rolling Stone. Rolling Stone is a garbage publication. Well, those people, they're always going to focus on the things that in the long haul are not going to make people's lives better or worse. I mean, Kanye West in 30 years, I mean, who knows how big of an imprint he's going to have. Generationally, there's a lot of different artists that do well, and it's difficult to know now how big of a cultural impact he's going to have then. But North and South Korea resolving their differences, that's a huge event. It really is, and it's a shame that people don't focus on that type of issue more, and instead focus on issues that are much more trivial. So that's about it. Leave me your thoughts below in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel, share the video, like the video, and see my social media pages in the description as well.